Hi there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Impactful Conversations, a platform to educate and inspire. I'm thrilled and excited to be joined by an excellent guest today. But before I quickly introduce her, I firstly want to thank you all, as the listener community, for your wonderful support for this platform. Thank you so much for subscribing to the YouTube channel and the podcast. If you haven't yet, I would encourage you to do that. And I would also encourage you to share it with your family and friends as well. And, do get in touch with us to tell us how you're finding the platform. If this is your first episode, welcome to the community. Have a look at some of the past episodes. This is actually our 23rd episode of the year. So this is actually really awesome. But anyway, without much further ado, I am joined by Alexandria Proctor. She is co-founder and chief executive of DigsConnect. You probably have heard of them, and if you haven't, you will hear of them throughout this episode. So that's a platform for off-campus student accommodation, the future of sustainable, inclusive, and dignified co-housing for 9 billion people. So they're absolutely going somewhere, and they're going somewhere really fast. It's also it's one of the fastest growing businesses of its kind on the planet and has over 50,000 beds in 11 cities in South Africa. So she studied a Bachelor of Science at the University of Cape Town. That's actually where the two of us met. And she also served as a student she served on the Student Representative Council before co-founding DigsConnect. And she's also currently pursuing her private pilot's license as well, Stellenbosch Flight Club. So yeah, she's literally flying. She's literally flying. Alex, thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing this morning?
Thanks, Tuffa. It's so good to see you again and to be chatting again. This morning, I am doing fantastically. I'm a bit upset that it's overcast because it's been a hell of a week, and I was so looking forward to a weekend of sun and beach and hiking. And I'm looking outside and seeing grey clouds and just excuses for me to stay inside and work.
Well, I'm sorry about that, but the least we could do is get a good start to the day throughout this chat. But Alex, thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I'm really, really thrilled to have you here. But so I obviously, know who you are, but for those who don't, we like to typically start off by just, discussing, a quick summary of, where were you born, where did you grow up, and where did you, I told them that you attended university at the University. But yeah, let us know where you were born and where you grew up.
So I was born in Port Elizabeth, not a very auspicious town. It's very, as you all know, it's very laid back, very relaxed kind of place where shoes are always optional, no matter the event. Board shorts are mandatory and t-shirts, we'll see how we feel about it, So it's a lovely place to be born and spend your childhood because it is very laid back, and there's some lovely schools. And as I've now come to learn living in Cape Town, free parking, which really is quite nice. Yeah. It's a lovely town to grow up in, and my whole family's still back there. And then I went to boarding school in Grahamstown, so I went to DSE. And I think the defining factor of most of my youth, now I feel like post 25 that my youth is behind me, but the defining factor of most of those early days, literally from grade 1 I'd say through to matric, and then after matric and I went traveling, was just being quite naughty. Like I was pretty defiant. I really did not like rules. I really did not like systems. I could not stand the idea of being boxed and someone telling me what to do, especially if it didn't make much sense. Like my worst thing is saying, like teachers saying you must do it this way. I'm like, well, why? Like I don't want to do it like that. I want to do it like that. And they're like, the rules say must do it like that. Like, well, who made the rules up? The rule was written, my school's like 150 years old. The rule was written like 65 years ago. It's stupid. Yeah. And then off to detention on Friday. So I think I spent maybe most of my educational experience in detentions. I was the first person in the history of my school to go to detention in grade 1. I was 5 years old in grade 1 and I was already causing trouble.
What on earth did you do in grade 1 to get sent to detention? Like what?
I was pretty, not looking back now, I was actually pretty rude. I was just defiant, and I think a bit of like a personal story, but I'm just like, I have like a lot of passion, and passion is good if it's directed towards positive things. If you're directing passion towards, building a company, obviously exciting. If you're directing passion towards your career or towards an art or towards some sort of like, expression, or passion towards community service or doing good in your community, then passion is so important. Passion gives you energy. But when your passion is like destructive, like let's say it's driven by anger, or just like defiance for the sake of defiance, which I think it was for a lot of me, a lot of like why I also defined when I was younger, then the roots were still good. I mean, like I look at the system and be like, this doesn't make sense. I don't like it. I want to change it. And because adults kind of just disregard the opinions of children, and it's funny, you think that, as you kind of get older, but still now, my mid-20s, I often find my opinions are still being disregarded, and South Africa being quite a patriarchal society, as a woman, also, your opinions are also still disregarded. So I feel like my whole life I've been trained on what it takes to like continually fight against the system, continually to fight. I'm actually so glad I was defiant, because everybody being sent to detention, being told to like toe the line and refusing to toe the line, refusing to break that, built up this resilience in me that now when I'm facing it in business, and kind of, I wouldn't say we're in the corporate world, but I suppose in like, in South Africa, the corporate and startups all kind of mesh together, and just like the ecosystem of the economy. Continually kind of brushing up against, resistance, but actually being like, this is nothing. I've been doing this for 15 years, since grade one, I can keep going. So yeah, it's interesting actually. You kind of look back and you see how all those moments led to where you are right now in your life. You look back and you see how like all the decisions that you took, all the things that kind of happened to you, kind of made you who you are, and that making who you are is what then informs your decisions going forward. And it's interesting, you look back and you kind of see the lessons that wrought who you are now.
And it's all part of your story, right? It's all really part of that journey that you're on. And so we can I guess segue directly into one of your passions, which I know is entrepreneurship, right? And I really am curious to know, like, was this always part of the plan? So, and I guess we can even go back to the naughty grade one in detention, right? Was this always part of the plan of, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, or, did you ever sort of think of that sort of conventional route of, I'm going to work for someone, I'm going to climb the corporate ladder, that kind of thing?
So it's so funny you say that, because I didn't even know what entrepreneurship was until someone told me one day. I was not like, until like a year into DigsConnect, literally. I was like, they're like, what do you do? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm trying to like fix student housing. I'm trying to like fix housing in South Africa. And they're like, well, like I did like an NGO. I was like, no, I started this company. They're like, oh, so you're an entrepreneur. I'm like, what? I obviously I'd heard the phrase before, but I didn't think it was me. I was like, that's like a business person. I'm not a business person. I don't wear like a suit, and I didn't do a commerce degree. What is this thing? I don't know anything about this. So it was definitely part of the plan. I didn't know it. I was just solving a problem. I just like solving problems. I just can't stand inefficiency. I can't stand like injustice, and I can't stand like things just happening. That adage always say that it's a bit dramatic, but evil happens when good people fail to speak. And I feel like in a less dramatic version of that is that like inefficiencies perpetuate unless you kind of step in and change it. And like we're not victims of circumstance, as like thinking and like conscious human beings. The future is just what we decide it is. The future is what we build it to be right now. Like we look on the world, and first of all, the world is beautiful. I feel like overwhelming gratitude, just for being alive and how extraordinary it all is. But on the other hand, you can say it could always be better. Always can be better. Like there's okay, there's good, there's excellent, and there's a point beyond excellent. And we should continue to be striving for that. When we think about the kind of society you want to have, the kind of world you want to get to, like it's just a matter of doing it. It's just a matter of actually like committing to that. Like we're going to build this. And so that's what it kind of was, this idea of like, what kind of world do you want? Really, like when you go to sleep at night and you're thinking about this ideal world, or when you feel confronted by injustice, or you're confronted by pain, or you're confronted by like this feeling the world is too big and how do I solve this problem? Like, what is that world you want? And then literally it's just a matter of like breaking it down into like smaller steps. And even if it takes you 50 years to get to that, that's beautiful. That's a lifetime then. That's a meaningful thing you can do. What else are you gonna do with your time? Like watch Netflix. Like, there's something that moves, like there's part of our humanity that moves you. There's something that really like appeals to you. And if you can align that with like a natural gift you have. Like some people are very organized, some people are very creative, some people are very, whatever it is. If you can align whatever your natural inclinations are, some people are very studious towards a problem, something you really want to change. It's a matter of just being like, this is what I get to. And 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, whatever it is, this is what I'm going to get there, break it down. And just start working towards that. And I think that's kind of, that was kind of the journey where it started. I mean, I had vague plans when I was younger. I was too busy just being destructive, I think, to kind of get anywhere else. I was just too busy. We're all born to these systems, which is beautiful in one regard. Like, it's beautiful that we have civilizations and structures and healthcare systems and education systems and insurance, so that if something goes wrong, we can get, like, there's a reason for it, and it works, and it's great. We can mostly sustain a very large population and make sure people mostly live good lives, and things are getting better. For example, the global proportion of people living in poverty is halved in the last 20 years, which is phenomenal. So things are getting better, and through these systems, we can generally, like, we can progress. But that being said, too, like, systems fundamentally attack the idea of self-discovery sometimes and self-worth. Like, when you're part of a system, you're seeing a class in a row of people, desk number 17, that's yours, and your name, identity, your uniqueness, your journey of, like, the kind of the unsystematized part of being human kind of is taken from you in a regard. Like, I've been on a big journey lately to kind of understand what it means to be a woman. This journey from, like, being a girl to being a woman, and like that womanhood journey. I mean, like, so much of systems kind of rob that from you. So when I was younger, it was no plans really. I think the only plans I had was how can I just like make things better. Like, I looked at the system, I didn't like it. It wasn't necessarily even like trying to do good for everyone else. At school, you kind of, your world is constrained to yourself and your community. It's everyone at your school. And especially when you're younger, you start growing up, you become more self-aware of the broader context, the city you're in, the country you're in, the world you're in, the places around the world. Of course, we grew up on the internet. I remember I had my first blog, I think when I was 14, and I started, like, watching the news, and I'd blog about, like, I don't know, Save Darfur and issues like that. And I just kind of wanted to change things. And I think more than anything, I just felt a desire to kind of just to want to have enough influence to stop things that I think needed to stop, and to start things need to start. So, like, when confronted by injustice or by a stupid rule or by something that didn't make sense, I'll be like, how can I change this? And of course, someone in authority would just say no. I mean, I eat no for breakfast. That's been happening since I was 5. Like, people, they love saying no. It's actually my favorite. Someone says no, I'm like, I'm going to enjoy so much proving you wrong. And I should just let go of that. But as soon as I had proved someone wrong, I had, like, a little moment to myself. I'm just like, that's another one ticked off the list. But someone in authority will say to you, no, you can't change this thing, or no, you have to obey this rule because of some obscure reason. And I'll be like, okay, cool, let's get to the root of this. Let's understand who made this rule, who's propping it up, why is there authority in this, why do we believe in this authority, and kind of digging, like, deeper and deeper into this. And what I kind of started getting led to when I was younger actually was politics. I felt that, especially somewhere like South Africa, I was like good governance and good leadership was essential, and, like, logical, rational leadership. So I was really drawn towards that. And I used to tell my teachers, to their absolute horror, that I was going to become president when I was in junior school, because, of course, this is the girl who's in detention every month. I was one sort of carving, like, I don't know, like anarchy symbols into, like, the desks at school. I used to try and stage protests, during break time. And it was like
Alex the politician, right? I mean, that obviously became a reality at some point. And I'm curious, so you segued into, student representative council, which inherently is a political sort of position.
Yeah.
And you channeled that energy of, and okay, firstly, the question that you asked is such a powerful question. It's a simple question, but it's such a powerful question of how do I change the world? How do I make the world better? It's such simple question, but it's a really powerful question because there's multiple places we can make the world better. And, actually, I'm of the belief that each and every single one of us can make the world better in some way or another. But Alex, the politician, how did that come about? And as you rightly say, so, did you ever consider a life in the public sector? And I guess, a life of, one day in maybe 5 to 10 years time, Alex the president.
In the union buildings.
What went through that sort of thought process?
So just to touch on something you said about, anyone can make a difference, I could not agree more. There's this thing that Martin Luther King says that I really like. Anyone can be great because anyone can serve.
Yeah.
And I think about that a lot. Because that's what it is. Like, all that anger and defiance I had against the system, like, it can drive you, sure, but it can only drive you so far. And there comes a point where that's not enough. Yes. And you need something deeper. And that is like the deep, inherently humanness of like looking after other humans and being with other humans, being a voice for other humans. Like when you uplift other people, leaders make more leaders. When you uplift other people, when you look at people struggling and you're like, I can help them. And you don't have to be a billionaire, you don't have to be this, I don't know, super powerful person to do it. There is something you do, an opportunity, a lesson, giving someone a book sometimes even, like someone like once lent me a book, it changed like, the way I look at the world, or just being there for someone, or, one person, or, how can you unlock, value for that? And so absolutely, not only can they should, we have this beautiful privilege, and it is a privilege because we have to guard it. We have a privilege of living in a democracy in a free country, and we have to uphold that every single year. And that means that not only do we have the right, we have the responsibility to uphold that. And that means that we're all responsible for the future. Like we are tied to each other as like, this Western thinking of like we're all individuals. I mean, it's important, we are individuals, individualism, but also like we're a community, and like it is impossible to like think that your actions don't affect everyone else for good and for worse. So every time you decide to do something, there is ripple effects. So it's like you can make this compound good if you just decide to do that, and it is absolutely in everyone's plate to do this, everyone's ability and everyone's responsibility to do this. So you're completely right. Like if anything, I just want my actions to be, the words, my actions, everything that I exist for, just to be a catalyst to inspire people to be like, actually, I've been thinking about this thing I want to do for a while. I'm going to start today. You don't have to launch your business tomorrow, but you can start. You can get that first thing off the ground. If you just look, there's this beautiful mathematical thing I saw. It's like 1.01 to the power of like 365. And it's like a tiny bit, everything. I promise you, it will get you there. Like a tiny bit.
Yeah, it's completely transformation.
It's that, And so the political thing, I think, obviously I'm good. I talk a lot. I'm quite chatty. I'm verbose. I'm very passionate. I'm very extroverted and outspoken. My business partner calls me the foghorn because I've got a loud voice and I just never shut up, to be honest. I give my opinion whether it's asked or not asked. And so I did debating like my whole life. And it just kind of happened naturally. I find that when there's a situation and people are unsure of what to do, what the next steps are, I would just find it natural to be like, this is what we're going to do. Clearly, we're going to do this. This is the path we're going on. Let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
And it kind of, I just naturally just assumes the direction, of how we should go things. So it kind of just made sense that when people are unsure, I was never really unsure. Obviously, you have to take into consideration, you shouldn't make arrogant or uninformed decisions. But, you have to be informed. But also, you can't be stymied by fear, can't be stymied by like, I don't know, and uncertainty. At the end of the day, you have to make the best call and back yourself and the courage, convictions, being like, I am the right person to make this decision right now. My intentions are good. If your intentions, I think, are good, you honestly want to have a net good for people. You want to push progress.
Yeah.
Then, make those decisions, lead forward, and follow our process so if you're good, and then just have like checks and balances so if the path you've taken isn't the right path. You can just correct as you go. But you just have to keep moving forward, and I found I could just kind of make those calls quite quickly, and I kind of hone my judgment, because I think judgment's a skill like anything else in life, and you can kind of hone your judgment over time. So if you continue making judgment calls, you kind of learn how to recreate situations where you can make the right judgment calls. Like what kind of information do I need in order to make a decision that will lead to favorable outcomes? It's kind of getting us whatever goal we're trying to achieve here.
Yeah.
So politics, yeah, I enjoy politics. I think, democracy is this beautiful experiment that we've been running for the last, 2,000 years in various forms. And it's the best thing we have. Yeah, sure, it's flawed. Capitalism is sure, it's flawed, but it's the best thing we have. Yeah. And we keep iterating on it, just like any other start thing, any other thing, we iterate on it. We're trying our best. And as more people, as literacy rates soar around the world and as more women become empowered, and we march towards greater human rights, greater access to human rights is important. Human rights on paper mean nothing unless people actually have access to them, which is important. We talk about our great constitution. How many people have access to that constitution? Yeah. So, as we kind of move towards greater equality, greater literacy, greater freedoms, democracy is just the potential. It's really kind of starting to like unravel. So, yeah, I love the idea of harnessing and kind of like harnessing the collective power of a civilization to be like, let's achieve something greater. The sum of the parts, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, or I'm saying it wrong, I'm saying it terribly, but you know what I mean? Like, the sum is greater than the individual parts.
Yes, yeah. Something like that, yeah.
When we come together, we can do extraordinary things. Like, that's why I started flying planes, because, I mean, if you went back 500 years and you went to, let's say, the heights of scientific, the university 500 years ago, people that were absolutely most educated, and you said, in 500 years, we're going to be flying planes, we're going to be on rockets, we're going to go to the moon 50 years ago, 60 years ago, and now we're actually reusing rockets. They land, they come back and land again.
Yes.
Like, they'll be like, get out of town. Witchcraft, we're burning you.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah,
it'll be impossible, like, when human beings come together and we're like, we're going to do this thing. JFK said we're going to the moon because it is hard. We're going to do this thing, we're going to come together. Like, we can unlock this ability. Like, if you set a goal, if you've inspired a team, a country with the right goal, we're going to do this because it is our human nature to do this, because it is the right thing to do, because it's extraordinary to do. You can harness this collective power of like a massive group of people. What I think about all the time is like the number of South Africans right now that are living in poverty. And I'm just like, not only is it horrible and heinous and degrading these people, but also like, what a waste for our country that these are human beings. These are conscious minds, and the potential is just not being tapped into. Like, people that are human beings, which when their consciousnesses are active, and people are educated, housed, fed, taken care of, that base of taken care of, they can just contribute to society in those extraordinary ways you can't even imagine. I mean, they can be creating art or music or films or businesses or science or, discovering things. The person who's going to cure, the next massive pandemic, the person who's going to cure, cancer, the person who's going to, unlock a better form of energy harnessing is alive right now, always going to be born. It's just a human being being born. So we have to capture people, make sure that they are taken care of. And the fact that millions of people in our country right now, are kind of excluded from being a part of this innovation just because they're stuck in poverty cycles, it just frustrates me, not only because it is like, there's the degradation of human rights, but also because we're holding ourselves back as a country, civilization. Like, we're not tapping into those, like, the resources of like those human minds and letting them actually work. Like, human beings working is the best thing in the world. Like, getting people, because work isn't the idea of like toil. People shouldn't be doing monotonous tasks. They should be thinking. They should be thinking about problem solving, because that's what we do. Like, that's why machines are great in terms of, like, everyone's like worried about machines taking on jobs. Machines should be doing monotonous, boring jobs, because humans shouldn't do that. Humans should be thinking, creating, problem solving, looking at things complicated, being like, what's the creative solution? What's the original thought here? How do I like overcome this? And so that's like the thing I try to drive towards also, is like, what can the work I do to, again, like, unlock this compound value? And politics is kind of like, okay, it's like, it's just a very high level way of like removing inefficiencies, getting the right people on track, so we can kind of move towards this goal we want to get to and take big steps. So kind of moving towards that slowly. I wasn't super sure. Part of me also wanted to be a revolutionary. I was a diehard communist when I was 16. I remember I was terrible. I used to wear this like red hat and everything. And one of my dad's friends, he said to me, because I gave this whole speech on communism and everything, and I was like, it's the way, it's the people and everything. And he said, how old are you? And I was like, I'm 16. And he said, if you're not a communist when you're 16, you haven't got a heart. But if you're not a capitalist when you're 30, you haven't got a brain. And I was like, nah, none of that. You're just heartless. I'm going to be communist forever. By the time I was 21, let me tell you, I was a capitalist. But, yeah, I think politics, it's kind of like, I could talk a lot about this, but to kind of, the rest of the story, but short to get to the point, is just that I think politics is important. Democracy is important. The systems are important, but it's very slow. It is painfully slow. Like, you look at the good work that Barack Obama did in 8 years in office. He's brilliant. It took years. It's going to take years for it to kind of come into effect. It's a very slow moving beast. It's like it's lumbering and it's massive and you do good change, but it's slow. Whereas, and I know which I hate systems. And like, even though you're trying to work towards something better, like this idea of bureaucracy and following the rules, I was just like, nah. So I kind of, I think about it now, like, being involved in tech startups, it kind of, it actually was perfect. Again, like the stars kind of aligned. It's this absolute rejection of a system. You're supposed to, the whole idea, like the root of this is disruption. You're supposed to look at the system and be like, the system's stupid. I can make it better. I can do it faster, more efficiently, more cheaply, which is important. And I can provide value, massive value. And especially in South Africa, like people aren't just building, some people building companies for the sake of, making money. But I find that, our generation of entrepreneurs, we're building companies to make change. And even when we hire, like, if you're trying to compete with the best talent in this country and you bring on, now it's kind of the employees are interviewing you instead of you interviewing them. And the question is, what do you do? Like, why should I spend the next, the better part of my youth at this company as opposed to another company? And you have to convince them the work you're doing is meaningful. Because I think millennials and Gen Z, you're looking for meaning. And so I think literally by starting up companies that are kind of like socially aligned, like social entrepreneurship, that have like a development initiative, and development, especially in Africa, is important. You can affect such massive change so quickly. And the great thing is that, like, there's no silly rules to follow. At the end of the day, it's like, is there value being created? If yes, you will succeed. If there's no value being created, you won't succeed. So it's actually a simple matter. It's quite harsh because you're continually being reminded that, like, you need to just kind of keep up, and you're running as fast as you can, but sometimes it's not fast enough, so you have to keep going like a bit faster. But it's just a way to just do massive amounts of good on a really big scale as fast as you possibly can, by kind of not flouting the rules, but being like, actually, let's relook at the rules. Let's make better rules. Let's make rules that actually make sense. Let's kind of like look at everything. Which is just, I think it's just so enjoyable. Like, I honestly think that if you want to affect huge changes in South Africa right now and across Africa, then starting a company is, you can just have like way more immediate effect than you would through politics. And also because you're dealing directly with people. Like, we're dealing with tens of thousands of students, many of whom are the first in their family to go to university. We take them directly. We're actually like, we're seeing someone who's come from a place where, like, they first go to university, they don't know what's going to happen to them. They might have gotten scammed by, like a dodgy landlord from somewhere else before. Or they, will end up dropping out. The drop rate's really high because they weren't living in a really good place and they kind of be taken advantage of. We can kind of like insert ourselves and stop that from happening. And make sure that one other kid is getting across that finishing line, graduating, enjoying the workforce, becoming economically enabled. We're directly influencing that, as opposed to politics, you're kind of like 3 steps removed. Which I also didn't like. And also career politicians. Like, I feel like you have to be in the system to kind of to claim the authority to govern the system. Like, you have to have felt the pain of paying tax and knowing that it's not being spent most efficiently, You have to have seen the efficiencies, being stuck in to kind of claim and be like, okay, cool, I got a way of doing it better. But people who go straight from varsity to politics, I don't know. I don't see how they can claim to have the authority to govern people that are actually working. They haven't actually walked a mile in their shoes.
I get you. And so you're obviously sharing an incredible amount of knowledge here, right? An incredible amount of insight. And actually, so curious, if we had to, if I am a listener who is I don't want to say an entrepreneur. If I'm a listener who wants to start something, who wants to start something that can effect better change in the world, what would you say are the three keys to doing that? And coupled with that, I'm curious, do you read a lot? Where do you get your knowledge? That's what I'm sounds like an existential question. It's like where do you get
what is knowledge? Second philosophy.
but where does it come from? What is it that you sort of regularly consume that shapes your frame of mind? I know that's a loaded question, but it's an important question nonetheless.
So I think I'll start the second question first and then go into the first question, just because I like to break the rules. So reading is my favorite thing in the whole world. I love it. I know, but I also write. I write short stories.
Oh.
I'm a budding fiction writer. I don't know if I'm very good. My work has all been rejected. I got a personalized rejection letter from the New Yorker about 2 weeks ago saying no. I haven't said stop sending it, so I'm gonna keep sending.
Well, that's their loss, right? I mean that's their loss. It's always rejected until the first acceptance comes in.
I mean, literally. So yeah. Anyway, so I love literature. I love it. One of my favorite memories growing up is my dad loves books too. I think he passed his love of literature on to me, and he loves his works. He worked really hard and seen them much, but when he'd come home sometimes in the evenings, I was still awake. He would bring me like a new book almost every 2 weeks, and that's how we would kind of engage, because he's not very emotional. He's very kind of like emotionally like most of our fathers, in this generation who are in their 50s and 60s, they're completely detached from their emotions. It's like, let's talk about our feelings. Nah. But how we would, I'm very emotional, so it always makes our engagement quite interesting. But how we would, because my dad's been absolutely incredible. He's been one of the best fathers I could have asked for. He's been amazing. But and how we connected when I was younger was through literature and books. So give me a book, and I knew that he would expect me to kind of give like my feedback on it. So I had to read, really understand, analyze it. He would always ask, okay, why do you think that? Or, and it wouldn't even be like, I wasn't exactly reading War and Peace when I was like 9 years old, but it'd be like, even it was just like I was reading like a Roald Dahl, or I started reading like Lord of the Rings when I was younger. He asked, why do you think the character did this? What do you think about this? Or what do you think of this scene? So it got me critically thinking at a very young age about things, also it kind of exposed you to like a new world. And even to this day, I absolutely love, like, my ideal weekend is just like reading. I love it. Like nights during like going to the coffee shop in the day, just reading and everything. I love fiction. I'm busy reading The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandra Dumas. I really like French authors. I'm a big fan. Just like a wide scope of like the canon, and like you can even just start like Googling like most influential books or books about this. And I really love like adventure stories where like, the hero's journey, and it's one of my favorite books. And so read constantly. I'm also like, I would say I'm like non-social. Like I have my friends and I absolutely adore them. But if someone asked me the other day, like, how often do you see your best friend? And I was like, yeah, like often, like once every 3 months. Like, all the time. Like I chatted to her like at least 3 weeks ago. Like, and I kind of realized that's probably not super normal. Yeah. I really enjoy my own company a lot. I really enjoy reading. I've been obsessed with National Geographic magazine since I was a child. I have stacks of the magazines. I'm a paying member. I even have like a little membership card. I love the idea of like the frontiers of like where humans have gone to, and National Geographic represented the frontiers of where humans have gone to, and I love that. I love reading about people that have gone very far and brought this knowledge back for everyone else. So I read constantly, everything.
Amazing.
Yeah, fiction, non-fiction. I had a mentor for a bit, a business mentor, and he would constantly give me audiobooks to listen to on business, which helped a lot. And other good books refer to other good books. So you kind of just, kind of keep going. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful to kind of give you perspective. I think especially this year. She's just been an anxiety-inducing year, I think, for everyone. Yes. And when things feel very stressful and things feel very tense and the world feels very scary, and you're like, this is so overwhelming, I think dropping into literature, dropping into like the store of human knowledge. We've got thousands of years of human knowledge. Yes. That's the beauty of being born in 2020. We've got thousands of years of human knowledge. People have been through some hectic stuff. And kind of reading what people have survived and what they've thrived through, like it just reminds you that like we are a resilient, species. We have overcome so much, and we have overcome adversity. That's what we do, and dropping into that and reading that again and just revisiting, the whole kind of sweep of history, but also just individual stories, like kind of one person, what they went through. It's very hectic, but a book which kind of gave me a lot of perspective is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. It's very intense, but you read people that have lived through some of the worst experiences a human can live through, and kind of how it shaped their psyche, and you realize that it's just a matter of perspective, so many of these things. So definitely read consistently. I absolutely love it. And you have to also read, you can read also the hectic stuff. Like I do enjoy Dostoevsky a lot. And you can read like the fancy literature terms, and you'd be like, oh, I read Dostoevsky, and everyone in Cape Town's like, ooh. You have to like drop at a dinner party, all the Cape Town hipsters lose their mind, and you're comparing like, yes, but what is good and bad? But also even just like these stories, like that just kind of shares like a human experience with you. I'm trying to think of like a book, like one of my favorite books of all time, Shantram. Like it's not gonna change the world. It's a story of this Australian man who was a heroin addict, and he kind of was in prison and he escaped and ran away to India. But it's a beautiful story about perseverance, about heartbreak, and about like the choices we make in life, and regret and betrayal, and it's just. But also perspective. What is Mumbai like in the 1970s? So it's always reading. I love it. It's my favorite.
It opens up your world.
It does
open up your perspective, because and I think there's a real quality that you get, that you develop within yourself from the act of reading, in the sense of you become open to actually consuming knowledge, and to almost inadvertently listening to people's stories and what they've learned and what they've been through, and how much, how certain people have unlocked their potential in those circumstances as well.
But also compassion. I think one of the best things in human beings that I try to cultivate a lot is like kindness. I love kindness and compassion. And I think like when you expose yourself to other people's stories, like you feel compassion. That's the thing, is that like, God, like politicians and like everyone's all trying to divide us and say like, people fit into these little categories, groups, divisions, whatever. And like, I don't know, there's like this inherent, like we have this humanity that when you just see another human being, like there's these core, how did that, across the world, everyone watched Titanic and everyone had their heart broken when Jack went down to the bottom. Everyone across, it doesn't matter which country you're from, what language, like everyone felt that, that's our humanity. Or like, the first time you learned that people went to the moon, we launched a rocket, or you watch, SpaceX launching rockets, everyone feels a sense of wonder, like across the world. That's our humanity. And that's, I try to like stay very close to, this like that core of compassion where you can see people, and I'm a naturally quite like angry person, and like it's easy to get like, get angry, or like, especially with like, talking about politics, talking around anything that's kind of, the stakes are quite high and passions flare up. But you really drop down to the compassion again. I think what stories do, when literature does, it kind of reminds you of like the humanness behind it. Everyone you see like has this complicated life of relationships and dreams and hopes and parts of despair, and like trying to figure out their way, what it means to be a good human being in the world, and sometimes you can joke around, and you can push each other, push really like, let's push further, let's be better, let's compete. And other times you can be like, hey dude, it's pretty weird that we're on this rock spinning through space. Like, how you doing? How's your day going? It's just that interplay of like compassion and competitiveness. And I think that, we just mustn't forget our like that humanity in progress. Because I'm diehard capitalist. I love Ayn Rand. I believe in progress. I believe in pushing hard. I believe in meritocracy. But with that, just I think to never forget that root of kindness and humanity and compassion.
Yeah.
Stories always give you that. You watch a really good film and you just leave and you're like, whew. Yeah. And I think that's why I love art. I think art does that. Art goes to those places where other things can't. It does share that humanness of it. So your first question, to answer that quickly.
So the 3 keys to starting something meaningful. I guess that's how I'll actually frame it as that. 3 keys. If you had to give 3 keys to starting something meaningful.
Only 3. Oh no.
Oh, you can give more. What?
Yeah, you're right. I should, it's good. The limitations are good for the creative process. Can have to think around these limitations. I think the 3 most important things when starting something, it depends what first I'd say is mindset. Get your mindset right. You have to just commit yourself to this completely. Understand, get your mindset right to be like, okay, cool, this is what I'm going into right now. You have to just acknowledge it's going to be difficult. It's going to be really difficult. You have to acknowledge that you need to be resilient. You have to just keep trying again and again and again. So this is your mindset thing. You have to be prepared to just work it all the time, to problem solve, to think very clearly and very cleverly about it. So get your mindset right, first of all, I'd say. Really commit yourself mentally. Don't half-ass it being kind of thing. Get your mind space right. Once you got your mindset right and you're I can do this, I am equipped to do this, I am the most competent person to do this, that's important. So I think mindset is important. Next is really framing the problem clearly. What exactly are you doing? Getting absolutely clearly there, clear on that. What is the problem statement? What is the problems that you're trying to solve? What exactly? Write it down in a line. If you can't do it in a line, I know things are complicated and all, but write it down simply. What are you trying to solve? And just get very, very clear on that. And that's actually what the mistake I made with DigsConnect is that I knew at the beginning very clear I was going to do it. We're solving student housing, but along the way I got so distracted. And only recently, the last 6 months, I brought back to me it's actually about focus. So don't get distracted by other stuff. Pick your frame the problem very clearly, so that you just know exactly what you're doing. So then when you write down your solution to that, here's the problem, here's the solution, you can very clearly have the strategy to get there. Because if you don't actually know, then you're not, then even if you have the resilience, it's going to get exhausting, if you don't have a very clear thing of what you're working towards. It's also nice to know when you've gotten there. Even macro tasks, we'd often build out features and we just go so fast. We wouldn't actually stop and be okay, we've gotten here. This is the point. Let's stop. Let's acknowledge it. Let's move on. So framing it clearly so you know what you're doing, so it actually is doable, is the next thing I'd say. And then the third thing I'd say, so you got your mindset right. You frame the problem properly. The third thing I'd say if you want to solve a problem, or do a thing, is, this is sound a bit silly, but does it give you joy in your life? Is it something you understand that? Is it something that you want to do to your life? Because you have to find that middle ground. On the one hand, I do believe in service for humanity, service to your community, service to society, service to your country. I do believe that selflessness is good, do good things. But on the other hand, chances are we have one life, and this is it for you. And if you kind of think about the hours in your life, probably going to die between, 80 or 100, and how much time you have. And there's definitely a joy to be had in service and working hard, but also is this something that will inherently give you joy in your existence? Do you feel like it's your passion? Do you feel like you will be delighted by doing it? Because you're not going to wake up every day and be skipping out the door and be yay, I've got 200 unread emails, woo. Or I've got this slog of just very uninspiring work to get through this week, but next week's going to be fun again. But you're not going to every day, but inherently, does this thing give you deep joy? Does it align with who you are as a person? For example, I'm very energetic. I love to do a lot of things. I love to be involved in a lot of stuff. I love to kind of be dealing with everything. If someone told me I had to be an accountant, and if being an accountant would meet those other 2 criteria, I would veto it for the third thing, because I could never be an accountant if I just sit down and just crunch numbers all day. I don't know. No, just no, all the no's. So, it's finding something that really speaks to what makes you happy and gives you joy as a person. Another thing is, I really enjoy being outdoors. It's important for me that I can go swim in the ocean at least once a week, that I can go be on the mountain, and having the flexibility where my life, obviously, some days you have to work really hard. If you've got 2-3 months, you work really hard, but just make sure that your life is happy and sustainable, because burnout is real, and especially when you do something big in the world, it's not going to be a 2-3 year project. You're looking at something big. Also it depends on what you're doing, but if you're committing years and years, decades into this, you want to make sure that you're essentially happy, happy with those small things that it's giving you joy. The work you're doing is work that aligns to who you are as a human being. So those are the three things I would say.
Yeah, that's extremely powerful. I think, when we actually begin to frame the problem, that's an empowering process, because that actually defines exactly, that actually leads you to a solution in terms of, which often isn't something that we have to figure out. It's often something that we already sort of know. We just have to clarify it. We just have to sort of, harness it throughout. So that was really, really powerful. And thank you for sharing that. We've started off really deep. Okay. We've gone quite existential, quite deep. I love that. That's amazing. So we can sort of turn it down slightly, and I want us to talk. Yeah, okay, about DigsConnect. We're going to segue into DigsConnect in a moment, but before we talk the serious stuff, I actually want us to talk a bit about something which I think, if anybody knows DigsConnect, it's because of your marketing and because of some of your campaigns. I've had the privilege of being a part of quite a number of them, and having seen and witnessed them, some of them in person. So you've done a couple of quote unquote crazy campaigns. You kind of if you're at UCT, you're walking on like the next to the plaza, and you're walking, and then somebody's like, yeah, did you see those guys that did this, that was crazy? It's like, yeah, it's crazy, but you're talking about them right now. So actually, it wasn't there's some method to the madness, as it were. Top 3 marketing campaigns that you've done, or marketing events that you've done. I know that's hard, because I actually think they're all, sort of excellent. But I'm actually curious if you had to branch them into top 3.
See, marketing is so much fun. Like, this is the part of the company that because you can just, we just let loose on marketing. Like, we can be so creative, we can be so wild. We haven't done marketing in a while, because our focus as a company has been really, because we built up the brand.
Yes.
We did high impact stuff in the early year, built the brand, got the traction, and then we kind of directed all our focus from budgeting to just focus everything into product. So everything goes into product, which is really fun getting it right. But the explosions of marketing, I do miss it a lot. So I'm hoping that next year can pick it up again as we go expand more restaurants to new markets.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we had a lot of fun. I think my top marketing campaign that DigsConnect has done has to be the DigSaw campaign, DigSaw 2020. That was wild. So what that was is we wanted to change the idea that a company, marketing for companies, a company's telling the consumers what we do. We're forcing out this information, this content, this material, saying this is who we are, this is who we are, this is who we are, and hoping that people consume it. We're telling you what to think, And the idea of DigSaw was like, let's actually just change the whole narrative. That's a stupid narrative. Let's let our users tell us what they think we are. Let's let them create the brand. Let's let our users kind of tell the story of DigsConnect. And so we created a competition, and there was 5 challenges, and the winner won 50,000 Rand in cash in a briefcase, literally. Just because it was so childish, we wanted to open this briefcase of money, and it was very immature, but we had a great laugh, and the pictures were funny also.
That's amazing.
So you had to do 5 challenges, and each of the 5 challenges was you living the DigsConnect brand. So you had to kind of create content around what's like to live the brand. And the thing was, I think, is the amount of entries you saw across this country. People are incredible, and that's not really the thing I said earlier. If you just if you just nail people to do something incredible, they will blow your mind with how amazing they are. People are so creative. People are so brilliant. They just need a platform. They just need a way to get it out. They just need opportunity. And DigsConnect kind of was that. We gave people these opportunities to kind of win these challenges, and the content they create. The one challenge, for example, was you had to flip your bed, just flip it over, and take a video and Some people just like flip their beds over. We had like thousands of entries across the country. People just like flipping their beds over. Some people just got childish. This one person like had his friend drive him across Jamie Plaza with his bed on the roof of a car. So he's like racing across in front of like Jamison Hall, slams brake, the bed kind of like flies off this car. It's like absolute carnage on Jamie Plaza. This other guy set up his entire bedroom, recreated also in front of Jamie Plaza. And he's like lying there, like during, between the classes. So it's like packed with this guy's like sleeping there on Jamie Plaza. And it's like, what's going on? Then Vanessa woke up and just like flipped everything. It was so funny. And other challenges we had, oh my gosh, this is insane. We said to everyone, you need to recreate the DigsConnect brand, like the actual brand, do something funny. Some people would like sketch it out. Some people would like do like a sandcastle. Some people would, one guy sent us a video and we're like, okay, what's the video? He had tattooed the logo on his toe. So we posted it. Next thing, a bunch of people started getting DigsConnect tattoos. Like, we were like, what is going on? Our lawyers called us in a panic. Like, are you telling us to get tattoos? Like, we're not telling anyone to get a tattoo, we promise. And they're like, what was going on? Yeah, it was insane. And then the one challenge, someone painted himself in our brand pink and was like also running over Wits campus. It was just mad. And then we would give people these stickers. And I remember I used to get phone calls from restaurants around Hatfield at one point, Victoria. And restaurants would call me like angrily, being like, did you come to a restaurant and put a sticker up? I'm like, I haven't been to Hatfield in like at least 6 months. What do you mean? Yeah. Like, your stickers are all over campus right now. And so people are putting these stickers up everywhere because they said send digs pics. And
that one, yes.
Everyone thought it was hilarious saying send digs pics. They covered the whole campus, obviously horrifying the establishment.
Yes.
But as our users, they're like, it's like a movement. We were just kind of giving them the platform to be creative, giving them the platform to do something, hilarious, to get their friends excited. Oh my gosh, the challenge also was you had to shout out, let's play a game, because the whole thing was a game in a public space.
Yeah.
So some people would sort of like, go, like someone would go to like just like a cafe or like your quiet place, but some went to like these massive lecture theaters and would like sprint up to lecture, grab the mic and shout like, we're gonna play a game, and like sprint out again, like security kind of like diving them. It was incredible. People are incredible. I think it's just like, we shouldn't be telling you what DigsConnected. You should be telling us, like we're creating the brand together. It was phenomenal. It really, really was just like phenomenal to see what people were doing. So that was definitely my finest one. Second one was, the one you were there also, so you remember it as well as anyone. But our money drop, which was our first major marketing campaign. We hadn't even closed our first fundraising round at that stage, so we were running on like shoestrings. We had it took us months to save up the money, literally. And we got 10,000 rand and 10 rand notes. And you remember the crowd. We were expecting a couple hundred people. There were like 4,000. It was just people. Wow. It covered, just all the way down the steps of the main hall, all over that plaza, coming out of the library, all across the stairs, from the maths building to the English department. It was just packed. It was, UCT was calling us hysterical, saying like, we have paramedics on site. I was hysterical. I was being rugby tackled. Remember I was taken out. My co-founders were also like, it was insane. That was our first real like big campaigning out with our users. And like I said, we'd expected, like maybe 100, 200 people to come. That was mad. Like,
I still remember that moment. It was, I don't think I've seen that many people like in one place, crammed in, especially I think right next to the cafe, like the like on the right hand side of the plaza, and it was just insane. And like the moment like the money drop happened, it was chaos. Like it was absolute chaos.
I think I aged 10 years in that 1 hour.
I remember social media before that was like it was just buzzing. Like everyone was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. They're about to drop 10 rand notes. It's like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. It's like, where? It's like, no, it's happening. Everyone was just moving. I think a lot of, I even saw lecturers like there. It's like, lecturers skipped class, like their own class to be there. And I think like, I remember a student telling me that they went to their class and the lecturer wasn't there. And the lecturer came back and his 2 shirt buttons were like gone. And everyone knew. He didn't even have to say anything. It was just like, okay. Like it was like, cool, that's fine. We don't have to.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I mean, to this day, still we got people saying like, you remember that event? I think I've like blocked it out of my memory, honestly, because like afterwards, Greg and I left campus and because we were still getting followed, and people were still like trying to rugby tackle us, and we put our jackets on so we could cover our DigsConnect t-shirts, and people wouldn't keep coming for us, but we were like, we need to go to this campus right now because we're going to get mobbed. So we like drove down the road and we got out the car and we're like, like no broken bones, everyone okay? Like, we didn't go on social media for at least an hour afterwards because we were too scared of the consequences, like of just things blowing up. It was too many messages. We went back to the office. We had like a war room set up. We had like our 2 interns, because it was just us and then 2 interns because we didn't have any cash to like really have a team.
Yeah.
And they had literally gone and bought like some like gin and tonics, and they were like waiting there with like the booze, and we just kind of like sitting there like shell shocked, like drinking, being like, what just happened? And it was just so much fun. It was so much fun. Like it just like that's how marketing should be. It shouldn't be this like, I feel like some marketing's so disparaging. You know, it's always companies telling you you're not good enough unless you use this product or you should use a service. And we should have fun. Like do something like out there. Do something that's just like memorable and like people like, oh, you remember that time thing happened on campus, you know? And I thought that was just so fun. And then my third favorite campaign, T-Rex races. It has to be the T-Rex races.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So, you know, we found, I can't remember how it even started. I think one day Greg and I were walking around, Greg is my business partner, we were walking around those like cheap Chinese import shops, you know, because we'd often get gifts to like giveaways to our users, and we're looking just for cool gifts to give out. And then I think I saw this T-Rex outfit and I was like, oh my God, this is so funny. So as a prank, like I was like, we didn't think it was mine. We just like, let's just buy it. It's so stupid. It was a big blow up. We're like, this is ridiculous. So I bought it. And just because I was so childish, I literally put the T-Rex outfit on. And the whole day I was like walking around this T-Rex outfit, like at the office. And everything was hilarious. We were recording videos of ourselves like coding in this T-Rex outfit. And it was just like stupid. And then as we do, we work in the office, and then like around like 6:30, I was kind of like PM, I was like kind of leaning back in my chair, and I was like, guys, just imagine this. Imagine like Wits, that main plaza across Wits, that beautiful like big building they have, and 50 T-Rexes just running across the campus, and everyone was like, what? Just T-Rexes running across the campus with DigsConnect branding, and Greg's like, let's do it. That was the start of the T-Rex race. We've had 2 now. We want to do a lot more next year. We had one at Wits and UCT where they had to run in relays because we could only do like 10 at a time. So we have relay races on these T-Rexes and the T-Rex pin where they have to get changed into their outfits. And then students basically like race across campus in these ridiculous T-Rex outfits. It is so much fun. I mean, again, it's like people, like their mates are there and everyone's getting like videos of themselves wearing these like ridiculous outfits, and it's just like, it's fun, you know, like it's our brand. We just want to like have our users have the best time ever, just enjoy themselves. Like my Slack is going off there. So yeah, just have users have like the best time ever, and so that was that was really fun.
It's quite an incredible. I must say, I think it's probably, you know, the one thing that's probably defined a big part of, you know, the DigsConnect journey, and you know the set. And I think it says a lot about your belief in the business. You know, when you're willing to do something like that, where it's like, you know what, let's do it, let's go. And it says a lot about, the almost trajectory, dare I say it, of where you're going, in the sense that, it's rapid. It almost characterizes the business in itself. So as I segue into DigsConnect itself, and the birth of it, and how it started, I'm curious. So and I've read about this, that this came to you, whilst you're on the SRC, and this idea sort of popped into your head. But I'm curious about the foundational purpose behind it. What would you characterize as the purpose of DigsConnect, and also about the name? Where did the name come from? I'm actually curious as well. I know Diggs, and I know you're connecting Diggs, so DigsConnect, it makes sense. But I'm curious how that sort of came to life, as it were.
So DigsConnect, the name kind of came to me. Hey,
yeah.
I originate a lot of ideas, like a lot of ideas. The first thing I do when I get into idea, I call Greg straight away, literally like 2 o'clock in the morning. He gets so cross with me, or he's out on a date night or with his fiance, and I'll just call him, like, I got an idea. So half the time he'll be like, it's a terrible idea, forget it immediately, and I'll write it down for later, because I'll bring it up later. And then half the time, I need to tell you about that. I didn't tell you about toilet paper campaign. But that's another one. But yeah, that was another fun campaign we did, the toilet paper one. Because I was thinking about an idea I told Greg about, and he was like, terrible idea. I wrote it down. I wrote it a month later, and he's like, okay, cool, let's do it. So half my idea is not that great. Other half, he's like, that's good, let's run with that. So the name of DigsConnect, I think I was, we use the word Diggs all the time. It is quite a strong, like, the university in the Western Cape use it a lot. So like Stellenbosch and UCT use it a lot. But you do use the rest of the country. I mean, like Tux used it, used the Durban obviously uses it a lot. Joburg kind of use the word Diggs, not as frequently as like the more university-esque places.
Yes.
We use it a lot. And so it kind of, I was like, I think, it kind of just like popped up, I think. And what made it really stick though was that when I was proposing the idea to the rest of SRC, one of the guys in SRC didn't, because I speak quite fast, and he was like, DigsConnect. And I was like, no, DigsConnect. And he was like, DigsConnect. And I was like, no. And that's when I was like, this name is hilarious. I have to keep it. Like, it's just, even now, like sometimes when we do cold calls to get new listings, when we first introduced the idea of DigsConnect, people are like, where are you calling from? And it's just, it's so cheeky, and so it really stuck after that. And the idea of the original foundation of the platform, like, it was so simple, it was so humble. Like, it wasn't this big idea to, like, now, of course, it's become so much more than we ever thought, to be on this mission to essentially change housing for the world. Like, that status I write, and I know sometimes people think that I'm joking or being, just saying it for the sake of it, but I really am on a mission to redefine what housing means for 9 billion people, to make it more sustainable, more inclusive, kinder, more effective, more efficient. So that's what it is. When it started, it was so humble. Like, it was just like, people just need to find a home, and not even people across the world, not across South Africa, just in Cape Town, just around, the UCT. It's like, it was very like about this where I was right now. Like, I struggled to find student accommodation when I was a student. My friends struggled. And then when I got to student governance and I was dealing with a much bigger picture, I was like, a lot of people are struggling. Landlords, always looking for tenants. That's what you want as a landlord, and you want to get people in your homes. And it's important to them also, because now if you're, let's say, a middle-class South African who's saved up most of your life, worked really hard, you got to your 40s or 50s, you now want to take on a mortgage, you want to buy a property, you want to invest in, in the economy. Like, it's important that you get returns on that. Like, that's the base of thriving economies, making sure that what you're getting is growing. So landlords do deserve to find, good quality tenants that stay in. So, and there's just no good alternative. There's no good option. I think we were literally still working off posters on walls.
Yes.
Literally, it was like, you go outside the library, there was that poster board, and people would stick up, room available in Diggs, or like 4-bedroom house by Lower Campus, whatever it was. And we're like, yeah, this is how you do it. This is like, we're like, this is how you find a place to stay. A poster on a wall where you take a little, like a number off the bottom and you call someone, you're like, you have availability. Like, oh no, it actually filled up yesterday, sorry. And you're like, great, Meanwhile, on our phones, we had Uber and we were requesting Ubers to go where we wanted. And it's just like this, some sectors move faster than others. Again, it's a decision to be like, actually, let's just fix this. So it was just like, I'm trying to fix this, for myself, my friends, and for this university. Just build this little platform just to like fix this problem. The value add is just that it makes sense for both sides. Landlords want tenants, students want to find a home. What I've come to realize now is that connection is a lot trickier than I thought. There's tiers of connection. Building a product is difficult. There's a basic connection, and we start a very basic platform where you just do listings. But as you kind of build up more and more and more, you look at like perhaps the most developed housing platforms right now. Maybe Airbnb is a good example because they have excellent design, really good leadership, good backing. They've been going for quite a while now. They've thought through what they do. Quite different. They do short-term housing. So short-term housing is, of course, essentially very different to long-term housing because where you're going to spend a year of your life at least is very different to where you're going to spend 3 days of your life. But in terms of how they, deliver that product, how they connect those two individuals, they've also put a lot of thought to that. And so, in terms of developing our product to get to that stage, how do you facilitate that engagement between two people through a product and through a service?
Yeah.
It's something that's just quite difficult. You have to think about a lot, and again and again and again, and you make assumptions. And the important thing is to test the assumptions of the market and see, is user adoption reflecting your assumptions? Because the worst mistakes that founders make, which I have made time and time again, is you see a problem, you try to solve it with what you think the solution is, but don't actually ever test in the market. You kind of don't actually test the real users, or you don't release the basic version and assess the data. And you're building in isolation, release, and then have no user adoption. Jeff Bezos has this thing he always says, which I love. I say it all the time. My team hates it because I say it literally every day. Innovation isn't disruptive. User adoption is disruptive. So all these fancy ideas, people have that I had about how to build this incredible product doesn't actually matter. People don't want it. You have to build things that have buy-in, which is interesting. Because on the other hand, you had someone like Steve Jobs and Apple who flew in the face of conventional wisdom of what people wanted, and they suffered in the short term. But now we've seen with their market cap lately, they are just made the right calls, and so. It's interesting, building products. I'm facing it actually right now. We're like some of the features that I believe are the right features to make, where some users are getting pushback on, being like, actually, we don't like those. But I fundamentally it's the right thing to do. And so it's like, when do you believe that you're building something that is, a long-term 5-10 year at scale, millions of users, good product, excellent product, beyond excellent product, versus right now you want to keep your base happy. But also, how big is it? Yeah, it's just so interesting, On the one hand, because on the other hand, it's like, building a startup, it's have a few users that really love you, solve their problems. And then, building things that don't scale. So it's interesting. It's such a journey building products. It's such a journey. You just have to keep your eyes wide open, to be thinking very clearly and also thinking quite unemotionally, because I think you can get emotionally attached to an idea or to a feature, to a product. But if it's just the wrong product, you just have to be quite brutal cutting it. The right feature being like, actually, we have to iterate. At the end of the day, the market decides.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the core value add is people want to connect. People want to find a home, people want to find a tenant. How do you do that in the best way possible?
If and I think it's such a. You're right. It's such an iterative process to not only, starting something is one thing, but, growing it is another, and, keeping it growing is another thing. And it's an iterative process. But I want to talk about briefly behind, the purpose of what it is that you're trying to do, not trying, what it is that you are doing, actually, which is, trying to build a sustainable future for student accommodation, right? And I'm curious, on a sort of macro scale, what do you think? So if I had to say, who do you think are the big role players in creating that future? And how do we sort of achieve a sustainable future in terms of student accommodation in a which is a bit of a macro question, I guess. We can take it in chunks. So in South Africa, one, and in Africa in general, and then the world as well.
So I get some more water there. I drink a lot of water. I'm a big fan of water. My tactic how I drink a lot of water is I sip continually throughout the day. So I have my little sippy cup, which isn't very classy, but it's just having it there means I'm constantly drinking water.
Yeah, so that's good.
Which I love.
I've got my Valpre bottle here, which it's it's not the same.
It's actually, I got it from Parliament, so it's a Parliament of South Africa mug.
That looks nice. Oh, that's where the green comes from. I see.
Yeah, it's Parliament. So. It's a coincidence actually, because I know the political background, but it's just very convenient. It serves its purpose. I always drink my Parliament cup.
I love that. I absolutely love that.
Student housing. I think South Africa's more interesting case. So globally, there's a lot of work we can do there. But South Africa's more interesting. So I think diving into detail on that rather would be good here. So South Africa has a strong mandate to break the systemic poverty and to break kind of like the legacy of apartheid and be like, how can we develop our country? What is necessary for us to reach our development goals, as a country? And that's, I believe, developing a country means developing the population, because the population builds the country as well. We're providing the economy through our taxes sustainably, because right now we're just in so much debt, which is not a sustainable way. And anyway, so you have to develop the population. And that means educating, education on a mass scale. It is so, so important that we're getting as many young South Africans educated as possible. Like it is crucial. I'm not saying, everyone has to get like a PhD, but like through whatever form it is, like, for example, I believe we should create a university or college or whatever just for entrepreneurs, like as a whole other subset. But so whatever it is, I mean, if it's entrepreneurship, we're teaching people, or if it's anything, if you just, through whatever kind of like higher education, whatever kind of vocational training, but just like we're enabling people to become self-sufficient in our country, enabling people to become like active participants in the economy, to look after themselves. I think it is just so important. And obviously, like, everyone knows this. I mean, this isn't controversial that we have to educate. Educating is important. I think the world over, people recognize that across party lines, whatever it is. Like, we need to push an education agenda massively, especially for women and girls. I mean, the data shows that the more girls are educated, it just is like this ripple effect. It just makes everything better.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's this big, it's a massive agenda for education. But of course, we have a marketplace economy and nothing's for free. So that means that we have to look cleverly at how we use state resources to push this agenda. And the state has that. We obviously we the establishment of NSFAS, which is the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, which funds students to get tertiary education. And the theory of that is brilliant. Obviously, we need to get that through, and the numbers are phenomenal. 800,000 students are being funded by NSFAS. I mean, that's incredible. The compound effects, especially if one person graduates, gets a job, and supports up to 5 to 10 people. Like, it is just, it's these value adds kind of ripple through society then, and they can then maybe help their family get. So it's just like this ripple effect. You help one person, helps some other people. So theory, that's brilliant. The interplay between funding though and housing needs work. It needs a lot of work. I think a lot of focus has gone onto making sure that students, their academic expenses are taken care of, their tuition is taken care of, and obviously that's the most important thing. You need to study, but again, no one exists in a vacuum. You go into class, sure, but then where are you going home to sleep at night? Is that place safe? Is it academically conducive? Do you have a quiet studying environment? Is it closer to campus, so you can actually, if you write a late test, we've all written tests that finish at 9 p.m. Can you get home safely, especially South Africa and especially for women? Can you get home safely?
Yes.
Do you have access to nutritious meals so you can actually make sure you're eating enough? Yeah. Is your Wi-Fi good enough? Because you can't study these days without internet. That's impossible. So you can access your resources online. So all these questions. I mean, like, I know the dropout rates are massive. I think it's only like 1 in 3 government-funded students actually graduates. And so the reasons, of course, for dropping out are complicated. But like housing, I think from some, some of our partners we've spoken to accounts for like between 10 to 20% of the reason why people drop out.
Yes.
Inadequate housing. So there's not a lot of work being done there. And we obviously saw this. We had students calling in that were government funded saying, how do I find a home? Or I've been scammed, or I'm living in a terrible place. I have, this money, where do I go? And we start encountering, the system, and it's huge. It's a massively complicated system where everyone is trying their best to do something good here, but there hasn't been real clear leadership on this. So that's when we decided to actually take the lead here. We're going to be like, we're going to say what the problem, we're going to state the problem statements. Like I said earlier, we're going to state the problem statements clearly, and we're going to show what the solution is and the steps to get there.
Yeah.
And so we did that this year. We released a report called The State of Student Housing in South Africa 2020. I can send you a link. It's available on our website. I've also done summary documents of it. We've written a few discursive essays on the key points and kind of highlighting exactly what the issue is and then what the solution is for that. Because we've got an advantage matrix here. We can't say 800,000 students are being funded if we're not saying, okay, how many are graduating? How many are getting a job a year out of varsity? How many are able to pay off their loans? How many are then supporting their families? Like, that's what counts. The same thing with, if you look at your metrics on a website, I don't care if people land on your website. So you got 1 million page views, cool. How many users signed up? How many are engaging? How many are transacting? How many are, creating listings? How many are finding homes? Like, that's what shows the value, not the vanity metrics of that. And so the same thing now with students. It's like, what matters is, are they graduating? Are they getting work? And are they staying in that, not talking. So that's what we cover in this report. So it's an 85-page report. It's very detailed.
And I've actually read the report. It's excellent.
Oh, really?
Work. Yeah, absolutely excellent.
What did you think?
So, and that's actually where the question came from. Is from reading that, and I think this past week I sort of skimmed through it, and skimmed through it a second time after having read it the first time when it actually came out, and I actually think there's some important key points that are worth discussing in terms of this is a massive problem, and it's a complex problem, and what we actually need to recognize is there's no one person who can do it alone. And by person, I mean that quite loosely in the sense of, not a person, individual, but I actually mean entity. And you're quite right. Someone does need to take the lead on the topic, because we can't all, be standing in a straight line trying to move forward. Somebody has to, chart the direction of travel in terms of how we're actually going to solve the issue, how we're going to solve the problem. And firstly, we have to define the problem. We have to know what the problem is, and we have to know and understand, it's particularly in South African context, where the problem lies, right? And the foundation and the impact of the problem. So when you talk about the impact of poor housing or poor access to an academically conducive environment, look at what's happened this year with COVID, where all of a sudden now the residence has become unavailable. Now all of a sudden, the education has had to take place in the homes of students, and that's been the biggest worry of online education. Has not been, you can give people access to internet, so a lot of universities went for that model of giving people access to internet via mobile data and so on. But actually, is their environment academically conducive? And are they able to find their best potential and find their best self and fulfill their best potential in that environment? And so that's why I think it's a multi-role approach, and there are multiple players in that approach. And I'm glad to see that DigsConnect is forming part of that approach and actually taking a lead on it, because it is a serious problem. I actually think it's such a serious problem that it forms the future of our education system in a tertiary sense, and at a secondary level sense as well, where the academically conducive environment becomes important. And in a basic education sense, even more important as well. So it really is a problem that we need to solve. But we cannot solve it unless we all sort of work together as the key role players. And within that, somebody has to take the lead and chart the direction of travel. Which way are we going with this? And are we fully understanding the impact and the nature of the problem? So that's actually where the question came from.
Yeah, absolutely. What you say makes so much sense. Like, it is a collaboration. It is a collaboration we have. Like, and that's what we suggest in our report. We say that, okay, here's the problem statement, and we go into detail of, how many people are being affected, what's going to cost, this country. I mean, like, everyone knows we need more student housing. So basically, government's like, okay, cool, we're going to put aside 157 billion rand. Also going to cost 157 billion rand public spending to get this done. And I mean, that's a stupid amount of money. I mean, like, that's a lot. That's an insane amount of money for our country, for our economy right now. You think about where our economy is after COVID. 157 billion rand. Like, I know on the scale of government, it's like, it doesn't matter. But like, I have things that, like, we can apply a start methodology. Let's be scrappy here, to use 157 billion rand. Let's look at a better solution. Let's not look at a solution that's okay, that, kind of ticks the boxes. What is a good solution? What's an excellent solution? And what's beyond excellent? What's brilliant? What is a frontier? They're not, South Africa we can kind of keep up, or, something that, you'd expect from Silicon Valley. What's beyond that? What's a solution that people around the world can be like, South Africa is pioneering. They are pioneering a solution here that other universities, other countries, other governments can look to and be like, let's copy their model. And I think we can do that. And that's what we said in the report. I think it is a pioneering solution, what we suggested.
Yeah.
We're repurposing assets that already exist. Not only are we saving money, we're generating money, from the solution. Like, exactly. An okay solution to this is like, let's stop the problem, let's save money. A brilliant solution is, let's like fix this sustainably with like no like continued input and generate revenue from this. Like, it's literally a matter of being like, make the solution better. And that's what we propose to government, is like saying, you don't have to build afresh, because we know right now that across the country, people have space in their homes. Everyone has like a spare room. Everyone has a spare, they can convert whatever I lived in a converted garage when I was a student. It was awesome. This family had like done it up so nicely, had like its own ensuite bathroom, and it was just like, it was lit. So people have, it really was. It was in a dig. So there's like 4 rooms in the dig, and I was in the converted garage, and then we had a bar at the back. So we had loads of fun. It was right by middle campus. But yeah, I mean, most people have space in their homes. They have like, a bedroom, they have whatever, massive amounts. They've bought properties, they have 2-bedroom flats. People are buying buildings, they're converting those. I mean, we have some of our best clients right now who are buying buildings in areas like, Salt River, so not your traditional student areas, but on the fringe of the student areas, developing those buildings. They kind of like factories are working, or turning into like student residences with 80 to 100 beds, beautiful places, that are looking now for tenants. And we know there's also, with the state of economy right now, people are struggling financially. Like, middle class South Africans are struggling. They need the extra income to come in. So it's like, again, we're just connecting the people, we're just connecting the dots here, saying like, people need a home, they need to have standards. Using marketplace technologies, the power of that is that it's not just one person benefiting. Rather, you're creating a context, a platform, you're creating an ecosystem where the right players can come in and start transacting. And like, transacting is the base of our economy. Once you let people transact with each other safely and securely, and like with accountability, you're stimulating the economy. That's essentially what it is. Like, use what it's buyers and sellers coming together, and that's trying to create is, how can we nurture an ecosystem? How can we nurture an environment where buyers and sellers can transact and interact? And in this case, it's just students, especially government-funded students, that are looking for a home. They're looking for a place they can stay, but also not looking just for like a cut and dry, soulless kind of like, place where you don't feel like home, but like a community, a home, not just a house, a home where you're going to enjoy your university experience, where after a long day of lectures, I mean, we all know it's like a long day, you're exhausted, you've got exams coming up, you're stressed out, you have things going on in your social life, it's stressing you out. You want to come back to your home and feel safe there, and feel nurtured there, and feel like, you have a community there, and feel like you're in your room and you feel like happy there, a happy home. Like, and again, like, an okay solution is just getting someone a house. An excellent solution is making someone happy in their home, And like people, I was thinking also on the other hand, like people are building it. Like property developers, South Africans are like naturally plucking entrepreneurial. People are developing that. Property developers are doing this. Homeowners are doing this. They're seeing the opportunity. But government needs to come to the party and say, okay, cool, let's unlock this. Right now, for example, government's trying to, I think they're either trying to build, some student residences, or they released a document of norms and standards for what a property needs to be like. But it's out of touch with reality. I mean, some of the norms and standards is you have to have a volleyball-sized area of land for recreation. Who's got a volleyball-sized area of land in Rondebosch, right campus, in Braamfontein? Like, you're telling me that a beautiful, 2-bedroom apartments right by campus where students could live and afford can't be accredited because there's no volleyball court in what universe? So we just need to have a conversation about this. Like, let's look at more intelligent ways of doing this. Let's unlock, we also with the fourth industrial revolution that we're building right now. Like, the technology exists through what DigsConnect has built already. Like, and again, you don't have to go do it. It has to be done. We've already done it. We've done the work, We've looked at the technology already. You have the network, you have the brand. Like, let's unlock this together. So that we can just bring these parties together. And again, like, it's technology that is on the frontier. It is so exciting. Where like we can just leapfrog, like what other countries have done. Be like, okay, what did other countries do when they built student housing? No, whatever. What can we do that's like an excellent solution right now? Where like every single outcome we want to achieve from this, like the dream outcomes, we're like, it'll be nice to have this, but it's impossible. Let's go for those. Let's create a solution that's like that.
Yeah.
So there's so much opportunity in student housing in South Africa. There's so much opportunity to just not just solve a problem, to do something excellent.
And I love the approach that you took in that report. And and you've taken the approach that you gave us in this episode in terms of defining the problem first and then going for it. So and understanding what it is and the impact of it. So I absolutely love that. I think that gives you the necessary context in terms of how you develop a solution going forward. Alex, in closing, I want to ask you a tricky question. I guess it's a tricky question. I'm not sure. Question. I guess it's a simple question. We'll see. What can we expect to see in the future from DigsConnect? I'm actually really curious. And what can we expect to see coming up?
Oh, I love future questions. I recently formed an innovation committee within the company.
Yeah.
Just because I love talking about big ideas. And obviously, a company has to be very focused. Like a company has to be hyper focused on, your one thing. And for us, that is placements. It's getting a tenant in a home. Like someone finds a home, that's great. So we just focus on that right now. But I mean, humans are dreamers. So I'll always bring up ideas and I'll be like, okay, we can't talk about that now, we need focus. So I formed an innovation committee in the company, and then we meet up every second week to talk about crazy out there ideas that we could get to, and then how we can slot into our product roadmap. In terms of the future, I mean, the big thing, I guess, is, I mean, there's so much possibility. I mean, you're only really constrained by the scope of your imagination. There's so much you can do here. So the African Union released, I don't know if it was, I think it was a couple of years ago, they released a set of goals for the continent, what they want, what the development goals for the continent. And I read those, I was deeply inspired by them. I thought this is so cool to work towards that. And so I think we want to align ourselves as a company of with something like that, what is something like, development goals for South Africa, sure, but for the world, what in the ideal dream world that we could only hope to get to, what would housing look like? What would be the best, most incredible, really, I mean, just think about something absolutely insane, what's the most insanely awesome Disneyland experience for housing, for human beings on Earth and on Mars? What's the experience? Okay, cool. That's the goal. How can we break that down now into, even takes 50 years, break it down to smaller and smaller steps. For example, one thing that's been on my mind a lot is it's this growing sense of isolation that millennials and Gen Zs are experiencing. This growing separation, this lack of community. I think a lot of people are feeling. There's again, I say, I like spending time alone. So on the one hand, it's not saying being alone, but it's there's a difference between being alone and being isolated, and I think that we've seen there's this rising trend of like loneliness in people and in isolation and this removal from like feeling like you're a part of your society, of your country, of humanity. And the big thing I want to do is how do we bring people together, like really together, and like what's a more fundamental space in your home space, like that space should be shared by humans. And so something I've been thinking about a lot is kind of like an idea is like how do we create, what is like community-based co-housing, what is community-based living, or like what is so there's a few ideas, like a few features we're going to start introducing. It's like small steps, small features we're start introducing now about like moving towards that. I mean, we have like our Find a Digsmate feature for now, which is a very tiny step towards that. Find a Digsmate, go on there, find a roommate, start connecting with people. And we've had people already, like for example, like actually we met this one girl who had met her roommates at DigsConnect and now live together and are best friends. They actually then applied for an internship at DigsConnect and we hired them both. So now they both work at the company also. And they met on the Find a Digsmate page. So it starts like with that and then moving out towards more and more incredible like features and offerings. To kind of reach this goal that like if you find a home on DigsConnect, you'll never be isolated. That's a cool goal. Or like another big goal I have is people that are financially excluded from participating in the economy because they haven't built up a credit record yet. I haven't told you the story, but when I tried to go get a phone contract from Telkom, they rejected me. This months ago because I had no credit. I went straight from being a student to a dropout to start DigsConnect. I'd never had like a job or anything, and so I couldn't get. I had no credits, literally none. I had to buy like I had to get those little tiny little Woolies cards and buy like I had 200 Rand credits a month, and I would buy like some stuff and then pay it back and try to build my credit. But like it's insane, how can we financially enable people? What we have. How can we be more sustainable? Environmental sustainable goals mean a lot. How can we? There's just like what are the big goals for like for humanity? I mean, you think about like the slums across the world, like, and how it affects children's health growing up. They grow up with respiratory disease. They grow up with, how can we challenge that in ways that are sustainable? So it's not just like pouring a load of cash into something. Let's just build it all up. But like in a way that reaches every goal. Is it environmentally sustainable? Is it like developing the economy and the infrastructure? Is it pursuing like kindness and compassion? Like these goals, and kind of breaking it down into like what we do right now. So we have like our long-term 10-year goals. Right now, some short-term features we have like some really cool things. We really want to make a big push towards this idea of like inclusion. Exciting. We want to do a big push towards going to areas we haven't really been in yet. So we focus a lot on like the main cities in South Africa: Cape Town, Stellies, Joburg, Pretoria, Durban, PE. So kind of like pushing into other areas, and really, I love small towns, So going to those areas and just refine the product again and again and again. I mean, a beautiful user experience. Like we have the straightforward page where you add a property. And we've redone that times, so let's do it again and again and again. Like you can keep going back and not necessarily change it, but you can like make tiny iterations. So it's 2% increase every time. So I'd say that's what we're doing.
That's an incredibly exciting future that's up ahead. But I also think, in terms of how far you've come and how quickly you've got there, I think it really is something that you should. Well, I guess we should be grateful for to actually witness and to see, and for you to experience. But Alex, I just want to thank you so much. This has been an incredible chat. Wow, like it's just been
amazing.
An amazing chat just to sort of bounce ideas, actually talk about, I guess, on a macro scale, the future of our continent. I love the part where you spoke about, the African Union's goals. And, I remember that document quite well, in terms of what does a sustainable Africa look like? What does Africa look like, in I think it's 2063 or 2065, something like that. And what we need to do to create a sustainable and inclusive economy that fosters economic growth and prosperity for people. And I think, the fact that you are forming a big part of that solution, in your field and in your space is something really to be commended for. So I want to thank you for coming on to the show. I hope it's been a lovely experience for you.
Yeah, no,
and I
awesome.
hope it's been reflective as well in terms of, your journey and where you've got to and how you've got there as well.
Yeah, no, it's actually so nice to stop sometimes look back. I mean, we are every day just like, oh, phone's ringing. We are just like absolutely like every day at like the grindstone, and kind of just like, let me turn that off. It's actually my phone on silent.
Okay. No problem.
Give me 1 second.
No problem.
Well, of course. So yeah, I mean, we are absolutely like every day at the grindstone. You kind of, like I said, you're running as fast as you possibly can. You're going as fast as you can. It's non-stop work, which is cool because we love to run, but every now and again you stop and be like, oh my gosh, like like realign. This is where we come from. This is where we're going. Everyone's still breathing. Let's keep going. It is nice. It is nice to chat, and yeah, and especially because obviously I've known you for so long, and so it's yeah. It's honestly, I'm having my life. I'm having so much fun. Like building this, yeah, it's so much fun. Like it's I feel privileged more than anything. It's hard work, and sometimes I get exhausted. 2 days ago, I had a long day, and just for the sunset, I went down to the beach to try and have a quick swim before the end of the day, and I laid on the sand, and I ended up passing out on the beach. Just fell asleep. I was so tired. For like. I don't know why I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Anyway, ended up like falling asleep on the beach. I was so tired, and so some days absolutely exhausted, but by and large, I mean, I feel privileged. I feel just totally privileged that I get to have the opportunity to do this.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome, and it's incredibly inspirational. Yeah, just want to thank you once again, and to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us for episode 23 of Impactful Conversations. It's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you once again for supporting the platform. I hope the platform has impacted you, it's inspired you, it's educated you, it's given you some insight, and absolutely no doubt that the episode today has done that. But from us, thank you so much and goodbye.
Cheers.